Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a place where stories are told not to awaken the mind, but to soothe it and gently guide you into sleep. As the long day comes to a close, you may still be carrying unfinished thoughts, questions that do not yet need answers. And right now, you do not need more information. You only need a safe space to let everything soften and settle. In today's video, we will gently touch the most restful mysteries of the universe. Not mysteries meant to overwhelm or confuse, but those vast enough to remind us of something simple and kind. A human being does not need to understand everything in order to feel at peace. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, the outer universe and the inner universe of the human psyche endlessly reflect one another, deep, silent, and rich with meaning. Stories for Sleep was created for moments like this, when the lights grow dim, the breath begins to slow, and you allow yourself simply to listen. There is nothing to remember, nothing to focus on. Just let the stories drift by, like stars moving quietly across the night sky. Lie down comfortably. Let your body relax. The journey into the universe and the journey back into deep sleep begins here. As night settles in and the outside world grows quieter, this may be one of the rare moments in the day when you allow yourself to pause. Not to search for answers, not to solve anything, simply to be here with your own breath. And in this stillness, we begin to touch a very ancient question. How much does humanity truly understand about this world? Science has taken us very far. We have measured the distances between stars, decoded the structure of genes, and simulated the earliest moments of the universe itself. Yet the deeper we go, the more we encounter a gentle paradox. The wider the light of knowledge expands, the larger the shadow of the unknown becomes. Carl Gustav Jung once suggested that the human mind does not live only by what is illuminated, but is also nourished by what remains dim, the realm of mystery, symbol, and the quietly working unconscious. Perhaps our fatigue today does not come from knowing too little, but from the pressure to understand everything, to name, to grasp, to control. And yet the deepest part of the soul whispers something else. You do not need to understand everything to be at peace. You only need to listen the way one listens to rain, without analyzing each drop. This video is not a lecture. It is an invitation to stand at the edge of knowledge where science pauses and contemplation begins, where you are not asked to remember, to argue, or to keep up, only to relax and allow ideas about the universe, the mind, and the unknown to pass through you gently. In the journey ahead, we will not try to conquer mystery, but learn how to rest beside it. Because sometimes, allowing the unknown to exist is the greatest gift a tired mind can receive. Part 1. The Edge of Knowledge. Even now, as you listen to these opening words, the world outside continues to move in its own rhythm. Stars burn silently in infinite space. Galaxies drift slowly across billions of years. And somewhere within this vastness, a small human being lies still, closing a long day, carrying questions that do not yet need answers. Welcome to the exploration of the edge of knowledge, not through intellectual strain, but through the quieting of the soul. In Stories for Sleep, we do not seek to conquer the universe or decode every mystery. Instead, we enter them slowly, the way one enters the night, where not everything needs to be illuminated. Science has carried humanity far. We have measured the age of the universe, observed particles smaller than atoms, and heard the echo of the explosion that gave birth to time. Yet the more we learn, the clearer one ancient truth becomes: what we do not know is always greater than what we do. The edge of knowledge is not a fixed boundary, but a horizon. The closer we move toward it, the farther it recedes. Carl Gustav Jung saw in this a profound truth about the human psyche. Like the outer universe, our inner world contains regions that cannot and need not be fully illuminated. The unconscious is not an enemy of understanding. It is the ground from which understanding grows. The unknown does not threaten life. It preserves its mystery. So here, you do not need to understand everything. You do not need to remember facts, connect ideas, or keep pace with anything at all. Simply allow yourself to listen. Let images of the universe, of vast space, of ancient silence drift through your mind like slow-moving clouds. If something feels unclear, let it remain blurred. If a question arises, let it fall asleep. The edge of knowledge is also where rest begins. When the mind stops trying to control, the body softens. When consciousness releases its demand for answers, the unconscious begins to whisper. And in that whisper, sleep arrives not as a task, but as a gentle invitation. Tonight you do not need to reach the center of the universe. It is enough to rest at its edge. And from that boundary, allow yourself to drift into the safety of darkness where not understanding everything is already enough. There are moments when night falls slowly enough that we realize the world is not as loud as it seems during the day. The universe's greatest questions do not appear in noise, but in stillness. And perhaps just before sleep, the human mind becomes soft enough to touch what lies beyond ordinary understanding. Welcome to Stories for Sleep, where stories are not told to be remembered, but to be felt. Tonight, we do not begin with formulas or explanations. We begin with a very human acknowledgement. Although science has traveled far, the unknown remains far greater than anything we can name. And that is not frightening. It can be a lullaby. Carl Gustav Jung believed that what is most profound exists at the hazy boundary between what is known and what has not yet found words. He called this the unconscious, a realm where logic is not required, where images, symbols, and feelings coexist without contradiction. The universe, in a strangely similar way, operates like this. We measure stars, name galaxies, calculate distances, yet the true nature of time, space, and consciousness remains beyond our grasp. Perhaps we were never meant to understand everything. Perhaps trying to comprehend the entire universe is like trying to force sleep. The harder we try, the farther it slips away. Jung once wrote, "The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good." The unknown is not only darkness, it is the birthplace of life, creativity, and the deepest peace. Tonight, you do not need sharp curiosity or a focused mind. You only need to be here, to listen, to let great questions exist without answers, to let thoughts drift like clouds without holding on. The universe was moving for billions of years before humans existed, and it continues to move even as you close your eyes. Allow yourself to step to the edge of knowledge where science ends and feeling begins, a place where you do not need to do anything more to deserve sleep, where vastness does not threaten but holds you in the slow rhythm of cosmic time. If there is one small thing to remember from this opening, it is this: you do not need to understand the universe in order to rest within it. And from this boundary between knowing and not knowing, between consciousness and the unconscious, our journey will continue, slowly, deeply, and ever more gently with each breath. Part 2. Regions of the unreachable universe after. Standing at the edge of knowledge. Perhaps the next step is not to move forward, but to gaze beyond what we can ever reach. The universe is vast, not only in distance, but in what forever lies beyond our grasp. Not because humanity lacks effort, but because reality itself contains limits that cannot be crossed. Light, the fastest thing we know, still takes time to travel. When you look at the night sky, you are not seeing the present, you are seeing the past. Some stars you see have already gone dark millions of years ago. Others are burning fiercely right now, yet their light will never reach Earth, not because it is weak, but because the universe is expanding faster than light can follow. Cosmologists call this the observable universe, a bubble of awareness within which signals can, in principle, reach us. Beyond that bubble is not emptiness, but regions that still exist, still evolve, still form and dissolve without witnesses. Events unfold in complete silence without observation, memory, or story. Jung once said, "What you do not make conscious will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The unreachable regions of the universe resemble its unconscious, where everything continues to happen even without human awareness. Existence does not require an observer to justify itself. It only needs to be. When we face the idea that some things can never be known, the mind often resists. The ego wants to conquer, to name, to control. Yet the deeper science goes, the more it teaches another skill, acceptance of limits. And strangely, this acceptance carries an ancient peace. In Jungian psychology, maturity arrives when the ego stops trying to dominate the unconscious and learns to cooperate with it. Energy once spent on control is released into life, creativity, and sleep. When you realize not everything must be understood, the mind can soften. The unreachable universe reminds us that human awareness is not the center of reality, and this does not make us small in a painful way. It frees us from the burden of knowing everything, of keeping pace with all movement. The universe moved for billions of years before us, and it will continue even as you fall into deep sleep. Perhaps right now, beyond the edge of observation, a star is collapsing, a planet forming, or a vast structure drifting through time. No one knows, no one needs to know, and that is perfectly fine. Like your own unconscious, it works best when not examined. When you rest, systems continue to operate. When you stop watching, the universe continues to breathe. And in accepting this limit, the mind can release vigilance, tension, and effort. You do not need to reach those regions. You only need to allow yourself to be small within a vast and safe order. And from that feeling, not lonely, not frightening, we move more slowly, more deeply into the next mysteries, where it is not light, but gentle darkness that guides sleep. Part 3. Physical laws that may not be universal. Once we accept that some regions of the universe are forever beyond observation, a quieter, deeper question emerges. Are the laws we believe to govern everything truly valid everywhere? Or do they only apply here, in this small corner where we exist? For a long time, humanity assumed physical laws were universal. Gravity, light, speed, atomic structure, stable, reliable, comforting. This stability made the universe feel like a well-designed machine built from a single blueprint. Yet modern science softly suggests otherwise. Some cosmological models propose that physical constants, numbers that determine whether atoms can exist or stars can form, may differ in other regions. In some places, gravity may be too weak to form stars, or too strong collapsing matter too quickly. In others, atoms may not remain stable long enough to create complexity. No planets, no life, no observers. These regions are not mistakes. They are simply other possibilities, versions of reality where conditions do not lead to consciousness or questions, and therefore exist in complete silence. Jung once wrote, "What we call reality is in fact a hypothesis. Our reality with stable atoms, long-lived stars, and coherent laws may be a rare configuration, a quiet pocket where matter waits patiently enough for awareness to emerge and ask about itself." This thought can unsettle the ego, but from a Jungian depth it becomes soothing. When we stop expecting the universe to be designed for us, the ego lowers its voice. We release the demand for immediate answers. In the collective unconscious, Jung believed archetypal images exist beyond logic. Contradictions coexist. Meaning does not need explanation. The universe seen this way is not a machine but a dream exploring all its own possibilities. We happen to awaken in one part of that dream not because we are special, but because conditions allowed awareness to arise. And as you listen in the quiet of night, perhaps a slow relief settles in. You do not need to understand the universe. You do not need to hold every law. Your existence does not depend on explanation. Like your own mind, not every thought follows logic. Not every feeling obeys rules. Some inner regions operate under different laws, softer, vaguer, yet they keep you alive, breathing and resting. The universe does the same. It does not require you to stay awake. It allows you to let go. And as the need to understand fades, thought slows. Breath deepens. The body grows heavy. In a universe where not all laws are universal, perhaps, rest is the gentlest law you're invited to follow tonight. Part 4. Time Origins and the Question Before the Beginning. When the familiar laws of physics begin to loosen, when we accept that they may not be the same everywhere, an older, deeper, quieter question slowly emerges. It is the question of time, not time measured by clocks or calendars, but time as the fundamental current underlying all existence. And from that question, another almost unavoidable one arises before everything began. What was there? Modern cosmological models allow us to trace the history of the universe back very close to its origin. We can describe expansion, the cooling of matter, the formation of fundamental particles, atoms, stars, and galaxies. But the closer we move toward the first moment, the more fragile the equations become. Mathematical language begins to lose its grip. Numbers tend toward infinity. Familiar ideas like before and after begin to blur. Here, science reaches the edge of itself. Some hypotheses suggest that the universe did not begin from an absolute point, but moves through cycles of contraction and expansion, like the breathing of a vast being. The universe may have once collapsed, then rebounded, a cosmic bounce opening into a new phase of expansion. In these models, there is no absolute beginning, only transitions like sleep following sleep, dream following dream. Other theories go even further. They suggest that time itself is not fundamental but emergent. Time may arise together with the universe as a consequence of change of relationships between states. If this is so, then the question before time began loses its footing. It becomes like asking, what lies north of the North Pole? Carl Jung once observed, time is a relative concept and depends on the psychic condition of the observer. In human experience, time is never a perfectly straight line. It stretches when we wait, contracts when we dream, and sometimes dissolves entirely in the deep moments of the unconscious. When science encounters the limits of physical time, the Jungian perspective reminds us that the human psyche itself does not truly live in linear time. In dreams, there is no clear before or after. A childhood memory may appear beside an image that has never happened. Ancient symbols and present desires overlap. The unconscious operates in a different kind of time, or perhaps does not require time at all. For this reason, the failure of language and intuition before the question of origins is not a defeat. It is a sign that we are touching a deeper layer of reality, where understanding gives way to experience, and explanation gives way to listening. The ego wants a clear answer when the universe began, why it began, and how. But the deeper layers of the psyche, what Jung called the collective unconscious, are familiar with ambiguity. Their questions do not need immediate resolution. They can exist as open symbols gently floating in the dark. And perhaps the universe is the same. It does not require us to understand its entire history before allowing us to rest. It does not demand an answer to the question before the beginning in order for us to exist in this moment. As you lie there in the quiet of your room, your personal sense of time also begins to slow. The boundary between today and yesterday softens. Plans for tomorrow drift farther away. You do not need to know where you stand on the cosmic timeline to allow your body to rest. Just as the universe may have passed through countless cycles without an absolute beginning, your sleep does not need a perfect reason to begin. It needs only a gentle release, a moment in which you allow yourself not to answer any more questions. And in that release time, whether fundamental or emergent, can temporarily dissolve, making room for a deeper stillness, waiting just behind your closing eyes. When human beings look up at the night sky, what overwhelms us first is not only distance, but time. Light from distant stars left its source millions, even billions of years ago to reach our eyes in this moment. We do not see the universe as it is, but as it was. And from this gentle delay of light, a quiet question has long formed in the human mind. If everything has a history, where did history begin? Modern cosmology allows us to trace time back toward what we call the origin. We can describe the universe when it was so hot and dense that atoms could not yet exist, when fundamental particles collided in a thick sea of energy. But the closer we approach that point, the more fragile our tools become. Equations yield infinite values. Space and time, the foundations of all human experience, begin to melt. At this boundary, science no longer speaks in certainty but in whispered hypotheses. Some physicists suggest that the universe never truly began, but moves through cycles of contraction and expansion, like the slow breath of a colossal being. In these bounce models, the universe may have contracted before expanding again, transitioning into a new phase. There is no absolute origin, only continuous movement, like sleep following sleep without a clearly defined moment of birth. Other hypotheses go further, still proposing that time itself is not fundamental, but arises only when change occurs, when states can be compared. In this view, asking before time began is like asking what sound existed before vibration. Human language, shaped to describe everyday experience, reaches its limit. Carl Jung wrote, "Time is a relative concept and depends on the psychic condition of the observer." In psychological life, time has never been strictly linear. In dreams, childhood memories appear beside present anxieties. Past and future overlap, dissolving into symbolic moments. The unconscious does not measure time in minutes or hours, but in meaning. From a Jungian perspective, human confusion before the question of origins is not intellectual failure, but a sign that we are standing before a symbol too vast for the ego. The I wants clarity: when, why, how. But the deeper layers of the psyche, the collective unconscious, are comfortable with uncertainty. There, not every question requires an answer. Some questions are meant to be held in silence. The universe, in this way, resembles an ancient dream still unfolding. It does not rush to explain itself. It exists, moves, and transforms whether we understand it or not. And the human being lying still before sleep mirrors this same movement, releasing the need to understand everything. As your eyes gently close, your personal sense of time slows. Today recedes. Tomorrow does not yet need to appear. You do not need to know how the universe began to allow yourself to rest. Just as time may emerge from change, sleep arrives when effort dissolves. And in that gentle release, the question before the beginning can be set down like a stone slipping from your hand. Not because it has been answered, but because for now you no longer need to carry it. Part 5. The shape of space. As the question of time fades into silence, another inquiry rises lighter, yet no less profound. What is the shape of space we live within it, move within it, breathe within it, yet rarely pause to ask whether space is truly an endless box stretching forever, or whether it holds a subtler structure curved by laws unfamiliar to human intuition. In everyday life, space feels flat and familiar. We walk straight, look ahead, measure with rulers and maps. But when science looks farther beyond solar systems and galaxies, these simple assumptions begin to soften. Cosmologists offer different possibilities, not as final answers, but as windows slightly opened onto the unknown. The universe may be infinite, extending endlessly in every direction. In that case, space resembles a dream without edges, with no outside. But it may also be finite, yet without boundaries, like the surface of a sphere. You could travel forever without falling off, yet never reach an edge. Space would not end, but it would gently close in on itself. Some models suggest that space itself may be curved, not in a way easily seen, but in deeper dimensions of reality. Light does not simply travel straight, but bends along the shape of space. What we observe in the sky may already be stretched, folded, and rearranged by the invisible fabric we are trying to understand. What matters is this: our observations are still incomplete. Data from telescopes, background radiation, and galactic motion reveal only a small part of the story. The universe, in its ancient patience, has not yet revealed its true shape, and perhaps it does not need to. Carl Jung emphasized that the human mind seeks form, pattern, and structure, not only in the outer world, but within itself. The human mind is not a tabula rasa. It is structured by archetypes. When we ask about the shape of space, we are also asking about the container of existence. Much like we ask, whether the mind itself has boundaries, or whether the unconscious extends endlessly inward. In dreams, space rarely follows familiar logic. A room may open infinitely. A corridor may return to itself. These experiences do not frighten us. They often carry a strange sense of acceptance, perhaps because the unconscious is already accustomed to non-linear, curved, and boundaryless spaces. So when we hear of a universe that is curved, finite, without edges, or infinite yet unreachable, we can allow ourselves not to fully understand. Ambiguity here is not a failure, but a natural response to wholeness. Like lying down in a darkened room where familiar shapes fade yet safety remains. In that moment when the shape of space no longer needs to be grasped but only vaguely felt, the mind slows. Curiosity remains, but softens like a gentle wave that does not need to break. You are allowed to drift within the question, rather than carry it as weight. Perhaps the true shape of space is not only out there among the galaxies, but also in how you allow yourself to rest within the unknown. And as you release effort, space, whether infinite or gently curved, remains wide enough to hold your sleep quietly and safely. Part 6. Hidden Dimensions. After listening to the uncertain shape of space where the universe may be, infinite, curved, or softly closed, in ways the human mind struggles to grasp, we can move one step further, more gently and more deeply, into an even quieter idea. Perhaps space does not contain only the dimensions we perceive. In daily life, we are familiar with 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. We move within them, turn, reach, and walk. These 3 dimensions are enough for life to function, enough for the mind to feel it understands the world. But modern science, especially theories probing the deep structure of reality, softly suggests something more. There may be additional spatial dimensions folded, hidden, curled into scales, too small for our senses or instruments to reach. Imagine a thin string. From far away it appears as a one-dimensional line, but up close it has thickness, curvature, depth wrapped around itself. In a similar way, the space we inhabit may contain extra dimensions, not extending outward but folded inward at every point. These hidden dimensions are not places we can enter, but spaces where forces and particles quietly operate. Some theories suggest that the shape of these hidden dimensions may determine the properties of fundamental particles, the strength of forces, even how gravity moves through the universe. If so, what we experience as natural law may be the result of invisible structures silently holding everything together. Symbolically, this resonates deeply with Carl Jung's psychology. Jung emphasized that consciousness is only a small surface of the psyche. Most of what shapes our lives operates beneath awareness in the unconscious. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The hidden dimensions of the universe echo the hidden dimensions within us. Like the unconscious, these extra dimensions do not need to be perceived to exist. They do not ask for attention or understanding. They simply are quietly doing their work. And in this there is a deep comfort. Reality does not depend on our awareness. Even when we rest, release, or sleep, deeper structures continue to support the universe and our bodies. Within the context of a bedtime story, the idea of hidden dimensions is not meant to stimulate the mind, but to soften it. When you realize that the world is larger than what you must control or understand, the ancient burden of needing to know begins to dissolve. You do not need to perceive every dimension to be safe here. As the room grows dimmer and your breath slows, you might imagine yourself held not only by 3 familiar dimensions, but by a richer, deeper structure, one that supports you even without your awareness. In that quiet support, the mind can loosen, drift, and allow sleep to arrive naturally. Even as you sleep, the dimensions remain. Even as thoughts fade, forces continue in harmony. Even without understanding, the universe knows how to hold itself together. You do not need to reach these hidden dimensions. You have always been surrounded by them. In a story heard before sleep, this idea is an invitation to let go of the need to grasp everything. When you accept that reality is larger than the mind can hold, a very old tension begins to melt, the tension of control, certainty, and effort. And as your breathing deepens, as your eyelids grow heavy, you may imagine yourself resting within a multidimensional space, not to explore it, but to be supported by it. A reality richer than sensation, gentler than thought, and wide enough for you to rest completely. In that stillness, sleep is no longer something to achieve. It becomes simply another dimension of existence, opening softly as you allow yourself to drift into it. Part 7. Is space fundamental? Once we have grown familiar with the idea that the universe may contain hidden dimensions, quietly existing beyond our perception, a deeper question naturally arises, not loudly, not urgently, but like a distant whisper. Is space truly the foundation of reality? Or is it itself something that emerges from something even deeper? In everyday experience, space feels like the most obvious thing of all. It is always there. We walk through space, breathe in space, sleep in space. It feels like a solid ground upon which everything rests. Yet as science moves deeper into the microscopic layers of the universe where particles smaller than atoms appear and disappear, the certainty of space begins to soften. Some physicists suggest that space is not a pre-existing stage upon which matter acts, but rather a result of deeper relationships between particles, between information, between invisible quantum connections. In this view, space does not exist independently. It emerges when these fundamental elements interact, much like an image, appears only when light and perspective align. Certain models propose that at the deepest level, reality resembles a delicate network of information, where every point is connected and distance. What we call space is simply a perception arising when this network becomes large enough to be sensed. Other ideas speak of quantum entanglement, where two particles can affect one another instantly, regardless of distance, as if the space between them never truly existed. And then there is something paradoxical yet gentle, what we call the vacuum. What seems utterly empty is not empty at all. Even in the deepest reaches between stars, tiny fluctuations occur. Energy still ripples. Possibilities still wait to emerge. Emptiness, if it exists, is a form of fullness beyond the reach of our senses. Here, science and Jungian psychology touch one another with subtle precision. Carl Jung emphasized that what humans call emptiness, in the psyche, silence pauses, the absence of thought is not empty at all. It is where the unconscious works most powerfully, a place where images, symbols, and meaning are quietly prepared. He wrote, "The unconscious is not a mere negative, it is also the source of wisdom and creativity." If space is not fundamental, but emergent from deeper relationships, then this invites a different way of seeing existence. Perhaps what supports the world is not a rigid floor, but a living web of connections. Not objects standing in space, but relationships themselves, creating the sense of distance, depth, and position. When hearing this before sleep, there is no need to understand or remember it. Simply let the idea pass like a very soft breeze. That perhaps, like space, the self we cling to, is not the most fundamental thing either. It may be an image arising from deeper relationships in the mind, memories, emotions, experiences, and layers of unconscious life older than the individual. And if this is so, then relaxing into sleep is not a loss of anything essential. It is a return to something deeper, a place that needs no position, no direction, no effort. A place like the universe's vacuum, silent yet complete, formless yet supportive of all things. In this quieting, you do not need to know where you are in space. You only need to feel that you are being held by an order deeper than thought. And as thought dissolves space, whether fundamental or emergent, no longer matters. What remains is a very ancient sense of safety. Everything continues to function even as you rest. And within that feeling, sleep can arrive naturally, the way the universe itself continues to breathe in the dark. Part 8. Time is not absolute. After touching the idea that space itself may not be fundamental, another pillar of human perception begins to soften quietly, almost without sound time. In daily life, time feels unquestionable. It flows evenly, second by second. We assume we all share the same now. Yet modern science, like one dream revealing the nature of another, suggests this may be only a convenient illusion of human consciousness. According to relativity, time does not flow the same for everyone everywhere. When an object moves very fast, approaching the speed of light, its time slows compared to ours. When an object exists in a strong gravitational field near massive bodies like neutron stars or black holes, time also flows more slowly. This is no longer philosophy. It has been measured using atomic clocks, precise enough to detect differences between mountaintops and sea level. From this, a quiet truth emerges. There is no single universal now. Your present moment does not perfectly align with the present of someone moving differently or living under a different gravitational influence. The universe has no central clock. It unfolds through countless local timelines flowing side by side, unsynchronized, unconcerned with meeting. When this idea is felt slowly, it carries a surprising sense of relief. If there is no absolute time, then there is no single correct pace you must keep. No universal moment you are falling behind. Each life, each system, each consciousness moves within its own time. Here, Carl Jung's insight returns like a familiar whisper. Jung never saw psychological time as linear. In inner experience, the past can live vividly in the present, and the future can appear as dreams, symbols, intuitions. The human psyche does not follow physical clocks. It moves in cycles, rhythms, and patterns shaped by the unconscious. Before sleep, you may notice this clearly. A childhood memory feels as real as now. A worry about tomorrow pulls the future into the present. This is not a mistake, it is how the mind works. Psychological time is soft. It stretches, folds, overlaps, much like time in the universe itself. And if time is not absolute, then the feeling of not having rested enough, achieved enough, progressed enough, does not need to be measured by rigid standards. Perhaps in your own timeline, everything is unfolding at the pace it needs. Before sleep, this does not need further analysis. You do not need to understand relativity. You only need to feel that this moment is enough. Your now does not need to match anyone else's. As you lie still, your time may slow. Breath lengthens. The spaces between thoughts widen. And within this personal flow, sleep can appear not as a task to complete, but as a natural continuation of your own quiet rhythm, drifting gently through the peaceful darkness of the universe. Part 9. The multiverse and bubbles of reality as the Partenine. Idea of time not being absolute eases the pressure to keep up with a single shared rhythm. Another image appears at the far edge of scientific thought, the multiverse. Not as a firm claim, but as a soft whisper of human intelligence standing before immensity. Some modern cosmological models, particularly those involving eternal inflation, suggest that the universe may not have formed only once. Instead, expansion may continue, endlessly giving rise to countless bubble universes. Each bubble is its own space-time, with its own physical conditions. Our universe, with its familiar constants, stars, planets, and life, may be only one bubble among an ocean of possibilities. When received slowly, this image is not overwhelming. It resembles standing beneath a deep night sky, where you do not need to see every star to feel the calm they bring. If there are countless universes, then our existence no longer carries the burden of being the center. We are simply one expression unfolding. From this, a gentle philosophical shift occurs. If this universe is one possibility among many, then reality itself becomes less rigid. Reality is not a single stage with one mandatory script. It is more like a vast garden where many forms coexist, even if we walk only one narrow path. Here, Carl Jung's thought resonates with surprising harmony. Jung believed the human mind is connected to the collective unconscious, a deep layer containing symbols, images, and possibilities beyond individual experience. From this view, the multiverse becomes not only a physical hypothesis, but a powerful metaphor for psychological reality. Each person lives within their own bubble of reality. The same event, different meanings. The same moment, different feelings. No experience is identical to another. This is not error, it is the nature of existence. When we ask, what is reality, the multiverse invites us to release the need for a single answer. Perhaps reality is not something to conquer, but something to inhabit. We inhabit this universe with these laws, this body, this mind, without needing to compare it to possibilities we will never touch. Before sleep, this idea can feel deeply safe. You do not need to live the most correct, the fastest, or the most complete version of every possibility. You only need to live within your own bubble of reality, where breath slows, thoughts soften, and inner space grows gentle. And in this moment, while countless universes may be forming and dissolving elsewhere, here in this very small world, you are allowed to rest. Your reality tonight needs only to be quiet enough for sleep to arrive light as a bubble drifting silently into darkness. Part 10. The largest structures and the unseen as the The idea of the multiverse settles. We return to the universe we belong to, not to make it smaller, but to look more deeply at the silent structures that support everything we observe. On the largest scales, the universe is not evenly scattered. It has form, and that form, when revealed by science, carries a quiet beauty familiar to the unconscious mind. Astronomers describe the universe as a vast network. Dense clusters of galaxies are connected by filaments stretching hundreds of millions of light-years, with immense empty regions between them. This structure is called the cosmic web. From afar, it resembles a delicate net, yet it is this very net that holds the universe together. What is remarkable is that much of this structure cannot be seen directly. We infer its presence through motion, gravity, subtle distortions of light. The universe does not reveal itself openly, it leaves traces, then withdraws into darkness. Listening to this before sleep, we realize something important. What supports the world does not need to be visible. Invisible things, dark matter, dark energy, unseen structures, quietly shape everything we consider obvious. Here, scientific thought meets Jungian depth psychology once more. Jung emphasized that most psychological life unfolds in the unconscious. Consciousness is only a small point of light atop a vast structure beneath. Like the universe, what we see is only the surface. Unseen cosmic structures resemble unconscious patterns within the psyche. We do not perceive them daily, yet they shape emotion, choice, and rhythm. Some days we feel sadness without knowing why. Some moments bring peace without reason. Like cosmic filaments, these forces operate silently. Before sleep, this understanding is deeply comforting. Sleep does not require control, it requires trust. Trust that even when unseen structures continue to function, the universe does not collapse when we close our eyes. Neither does the mind. You can let go and allow deeper layers, the large-scale structures within, to continue their work. Breath slows, thoughts thin. And like the vast empty regions between galaxies, silence itself is part of wholeness. Not everything must be seen to be real. Not everything must be understood to be supported. Sometimes, what matters most unfolds in gentle darkness, where you need only lie still and allow the universe, both outside and within, to continue on your behalf as you drift into sleep. Part 11. Boundaries, expansion, and outside the universe. As we grow accustomed to the idea that most of the universe's structure is invisible, the mind naturally moves one step further. A very ancient, very human question quietly arises. Does the universe have a boundary? And if it does, what lies beyond everything? Modern science approaches this question through careful models and metaphors. One familiar image compares the expanding universe to the surface of an inflating balloon. As the balloon expands, every point on its surface moves away from every other point, yet no point is the center and there is no edge from which one could fall. In this picture, the universe may be finite, but without boundaries like the surface of the Earth, you can travel endlessly without ever reaching an edge. Yet, just as this image begins to feel understandable, we encounter another limit, the limit of language and intuition. The balloon's surface is only a metaphor, not reality itself. It helps us imagine, but it does not grant certainty. The universe is not an object sitting inside a larger space, where outside could be defined in ordinary terms. Here, language begins to tremble. The word outside only makes sense when we speak of objects within space. But if space itself is all that exists, then outside space loses meaning. It becomes like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question dissolves within its own structure. This feeling, standing before a question that cannot be answered in words, is deeply familiar to depth psychology. Carl Gustav Jung emphasized that certain layers of psychological reality cannot be grasped conceptually. When the ego tries to name, categorize, and control it, eventually meets a soft boundary, not because nothing exists there, but because it exists in a different way. In this moment, the universe resembles the collective unconscious, vast, without clear borders, and impossible to contain within a linear story. We may approach it through symbols, images, and feelings, but never fully possess it through understanding. And strangely, this realization brings a gentle comfort at night. You do not need to know whether the universe has a boundary to be safe within it. You do not need to understand what lies beyond everything to be supported by the quiet laws still at work. Just as in inner life, you do not need to understand yourself completely in order to rest within yourself. When we release the question of outside, a soft emptiness appears, not a frightening void, but a space where the mind can loosen its grip, like letting go of trying to define the edge of sleep and simply allowing it to arrive. The universe continues to expand whether we think about it or not, and your mind too is quietly adjusting, settling, slowing. Where language stops, stillness begins. And in that stillness, questions may remain open without needing answers right now. Just know this, not every boundary exists to divide. Some boundaries exist only to remind us it is time to pause, breathe more slowly, and let something deeper take over. Like the universe, like sleep, no need to understand everything in order to trust. Part 12. Uniformity, Inflation, and Ancient Traces. When humans measure the night sky with the most refined instruments, something quietly astonishing appears. The universe looks nearly the same in every direction. Wherever we look at vast distances, the temperature of the cosmic background radiation, the density of matter, and the large-scale structure show remarkable uniformity. A simple, almost childlike question arises. How can everything be so similar when these regions are too far apart to have ever communicated? This is what science calls the horizon problem. By ordinary intuition, distant regions that have never exchanged information should differ. Yet reality whispers otherwise. The universe on its largest scales carries a deep harmony, as if it were gently tuned very early on. To address this silence, the theory of cosmic inflation was proposed. It tells a bold yet gentle story in the earliest moments after the universe's birth space, expanded at an extraordinary rate, faster than light itself. In this brief instant, regions once very close were stretched far apart, carrying with them the same primordial memory of uniformity. Felt rather than conceptualized, inflation resembles the universe's first deep breath, a sudden opening smoothing differences, calming large ripples. Because of that breath, the universe we observe today carries a quiet consistency. Yet the story does not end there. Even within this uniformity, science detects tiny fluctuations, subtle irregularities in the cosmic microwave background. These faint ripples are ancient traces, wrinkles from the earliest times from which galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually life emerged. Small imperfections allowed richness to arise, Here, the universe begins to mirror inner human life. On the surface, we may appear stable and consistent. But beneath small vibrations, early memories, unspoken feelings, forgotten experiences quietly shape our entire psychological structure. A tiny disturbance long ago can become a defining pattern later. At this point, Carl Gustav Jung's perspective fits naturally. Jung believed the unconscious is not merely a storehouse of forgotten material, but a deep ancestral layer containing archetypal patterns. Just as the universe carries memories of its earliest phases, the human mind carries memories far older than the individual. Listening to stories of inflation and ancient traces is not only about physics. It invites a different rhythm of feeling. Nothing emerges from pure nothingness. Everything rests upon quiet processes that occurred before awareness. And this idea is deeply soothing. You do not need to understand the universe's full history to exist within it. You do not need to remember what came before you to feel safe. Like the universe, you carry foundations formed long ago, strong enough to allow you to relax. As the pace of the story slows, let your mind do what the universe once did: open, then settle. Small ripples of thought may pass without correction. In the soft uniformity of night, simply lie still, allowing deeper structures to continue supporting you silently, steadily, and gently. Part 13. The Future of the Universe. When humans look up at the night sky, the question is not only how the universe began, but where it is going. Not with hurried curiosity, but with a deeply human feeling. The wish to know whether everything will fade, collapse, or continue drifting in silence. Modern cosmology offers several possible futures, and notably none resemble a sharp ending. Some scenarios suggest the universe will expand forever, galaxies drifting apart, light growing ever fainter. A cold, dark future, not abrupt but gradual, like music slowly fading into silence. Other possibilities are more dramatic. A big rip, where expansion accelerates until all structures, galaxies, stars, atoms are torn apart. Nothing collapses from impact. Everything stretches beyond cohesion. Conversely, some models whisper of contraction, expansion, halts, reverses, and the universe collapses into a dense, hot state, a big crunch. Or cyclical models, where expansion and contraction repeat endlessly like the breath of a vast being. What is striking is that none of these outcomes are confirmed. The future remains open, guided by a mysterious factor called dark energy, known only through its effects, silent in essence. Here, the universe begins to resemble an unfinished story. No final chapter, only open possibilities. From a Jungian depth perspective, this echoes a familiar truth. The human future is not a single path, but a field of potential. Jung saw psychological life not as a march toward an ending, but as a movement toward wholeness, a continuous integration and transformation. The future of the universe mirrors the inner future of each person. One need not know who one will become or how everything ends. What matters is sensing that movement continues slowly, distantly beyond control, and in that openness lies a gentle beauty. The universe does not ask us to witness its conclusion. It invites us only to be present now long enough to feel life continuing. As night deepens and the future grows hazy, allow your mind to drift with that expansion. No destination required. Like the universe, you are on a journey that does not need an endpoint tonight. And perhaps in that uncertainty, sleep arrives more naturally, not as an ending, but as a pause within a story still unfolding. Part 14. Dark Matter, Dark Energy, and Hidden Reality. When humans gaze at the night sky, we often assume what we see, the stars, the faint Milky Way, is the universe. Modern science whispers something far quieter. What we see is only a small fraction. Most of the universe exists in darkness, not the darkness of threat, but the darkness of the unknown. Dark matter is one such idea. It does not emit or reflect light. It leaves no direct trace, and yet it is there. Galaxies rotate too quickly to exist without it. Clusters remain bound. Vast structures hold together as if an invisible hand gently supports them. Some theories suggest dark matter may have structure, may interact with itself, or may belong to higher dimensions, layers of reality beyond human perception. If so, the universe is deep not only in distance but in layers, like an ocean where we float on the surface. Alongside dark matter is dark energy, even quieter. While dark matter holds galaxies together, dark energy drives the universe's expansion. Its nature remains unknown. Vacuum energy, a property of space itself, or a sign that our physical laws are incomplete. Here, science touches something deeply familiar to Jungian psychology. Jung emphasized that most psychological life operates in the unconscious. Consciousness is like starlight, visible but small. The rest is darkness not to fear but to rely upon. Dark matter and dark energy resemble the universe's unconscious, invisible yet shaping all motion, silent yet decisive. And like the human unconscious, they support us without needing to be seen. Seen this way, darkness is not absence but containment, a holding space, a place where things exist without display. This idea received slowly brings comfort. You do not need to see everything to be safe. Like the universe, you carry more than you know. Forgotten dreams, unnamed emotions, unspoken intuitions, these are not emptiness. They are the dark parts doing their work, maintaining structure, sustaining life. At night, when conscious light dims, this darkness can be trusted. You do not need to understand dark matter. You do not need to explain dark energy. Just as you do not need to interpret every dream to sleep. Simply know this: most of the universe is unseen, and that unseen part is what keeps everything from falling apart. And as this thought settles, you may relax a little more. Tonight, like the universe, you do not need to shine. You may rest in gentle darkness, where invisible forces continue quietly caring for your existence. Part 15. Black holes, the boundary of knowing. If dark matter and dark energy are the unseen foundations that quietly support the universe, then black holes are like an even deeper still point, where everything we once believed to be solid begins to dissolve. There not only light is trapped, but certainty itself cannot escape intact. Black holes are born from massive stars that have completed their life cycles. When their fuel is exhausted, they do not explode into disappearance, but instead collapse inward, compressing enormous mass into a region so small that familiar physical laws no longer function as they once did. Space curves to its extreme. Time slows, stretches, and seems to stop altogether. At the heart of the black hole, the singularity equations lose their meaning, not because the universe is chaotic, but because human language has reached its limit. Surrounding a black hole is a remarkable boundary, the event horizon. This is not a wall, but a threshold. Once crossed, no signal, not even light, can return. To a distant observer, everything falling in appears to slow, fade, and freeze forever. Yet for the object itself, there is no clear moment of crossing. Two realities coexist, both valid and impossible to reconcile through ordinary intuition. Here, science encounters one of its deepest questions: does information truly disappear? If everything that falls into a black hole is lost, this challenges the fundamental principles of physics. This question has haunted generations of scientists, including Stephen Hawking, who showed that black holes are not entirely black. They emit an extremely faint radiation, Hawking radiation, like a slow breath of the universe. Over unimaginably long timescales, a black hole may evaporate. But what happens to the information that fell in? The answer remains incomplete. At a deeper level, black holes are not merely physical objects. They are symbols of the limits of knowledge. Carl Gustav Jung observed that certain contents of the psyche cannot be accessed directly by consciousness. They exist beyond a psychological horizon. We see their effects, not their essence. In this sense, a black hole resembles the deepest unconscious of the universe, where familiar images, memories, and structures dissolve into another mode of being. Humans often fear what cannot be understood or controlled. Yet when viewed slowly, black holes are not destroyers but guardians of boundaries. They remind us that not everything needs to be illuminated. Not every question requires an immediate answer. Some regions of existence exist to be respected, not conquered. The same is true in inner life. There are nameless sorrows, dim memories, gaps without explanation. We often try to figure them out to move past them quickly. But perhaps like black holes, some experiences do not need to be forced open. They need to be allowed to exist in silence. As night comes and the mind loosens its grip, you do not need to carry every question with you. You do not need to see through every darkness. Black holes remain calm, unhurried. And within you as well, there are deep spaces quietly at work without needing the light of awareness. Tonight you may rest at the edge of knowing. No need to cross, no need to turn back. Just remain there where limits are no longer a lack but a form of profound peace. Part 16. Extreme Objects and Phenomena After Standing. At the edge of a black hole, where familiar laws dissolve, we can step gently into another region of the universe. Extreme objects and phenomena. They are not loud or dramatic, yet they quietly challenge every framework of understanding we hold. They are not central to popular stories, and for that reason, they resemble deep dreams, rarely remembered, yet rich with truth. Begin with neutron stars. When a massive star collapses but lacks the mass to become a black hole, it contracts into something unimaginably small and unimaginably dense. A teaspoon of neutron star matter could weigh more than a mountain. At this density, atoms no longer retain their familiar form. Electrons are forced into protons. Matter becomes strange, no longer matter in the ordinary sense. Nature reveals that our concepts apply only within narrow limits. Beyond this lie hypotheses of strange matter, where quarks exist freely in a state more stable than ordinary matter. Some theories suggest entire neutron stars may be quark stars or even dark stars. Objects that emit no light, interact weakly with electromagnetism, yet possess mass and gravity. They exist like shadows in the universe, unseen by telescopes, revealed only through subtle distortions of motion and light. Then there are other anomalies, galaxies that appear to contain little or no dark matter. While most cosmological models rely on dark matter to explain large-scale structure, some galaxies seem stable without it. They are like stories that do not follow the main plot, not enough to overturn theory, but too real to ignore. Perhaps the picture is still missing essential pieces. These irregularities are not errors of the universe. They are reminders that human models are maps, not territory. In Jungian terms, when consciousness insists on absolute order, the unconscious introduces images that unsettle certainty. The universe does the same. Each extreme phenomenon is like a symbol rising from a deeper layer of reality, where opposites coexist. Psychologically, these objects resemble rare but real inner states, moments when emotion is compressed to the point of collapse, experiences too heavy to name, too strange to share. They are uncommon, but no less valid. In fact, they expand the range of what it means to be human. What comforts us is this: the universe does not reject its extremes. It does not force them to conform. It allows them to exist as legitimate forms of being. There is no single correct way for matter to exist, no single structure reality must follow. Some stars do not shine. Some galaxies lack required components. Some forms of matter defy intuition. And this offers deep reassurance. If the universe allows such diversity, perhaps you do not need to fit perfectly into any mold either. You do not need to be bright, clear, or easily understood. There are quiet, dense, inward forms of existence that are entirely valid. As night falls, let your mind drift past these strange objects, compressed stars, silent galaxies, structures that need not be fully understood. You do not need to explain the universe to rest within it, and you do not need to fully understand yourself to sleep in peace. Part 17. The space between the stars after passing. through extreme objects where matter is compressed and reality exposes its exceptions. The universe invites us to step back into another realm, the space between the stars. Not a place of drama, but of extended silence. Not the center of light, but the dark ground from which light is born. At first glance, interstellar space appears empty. Between stars lie light years of nothing. Yet modern science whispers a different truth: this space has never been void. It contains cold molecular clouds, fine dust-wandering atoms, complex organic molecules formed in darkness. Weak but persistent magnetic fields exist there. Background radiation flows through. Invisible waves pass without witnesses. In interstellar space, molecules difficult to sustain on Earth can form and endure. Formaldehyde, methanol, even prebiotic compounds are found not in stars but between them. Life, or at least its seeds, emerges not from noise but from long stretches of quiet. Interstellar space is also a place of waiting. Cold gas clouds may drift for tens of millions of years before a small disturbance, a shockwave, a subtle gravitational pull initiates collapse and star birth. There is no urgency, no clear goal, only potential held gently in silence. If stars are moments of radiant consciousness, then the space between them resembles the unconscious of the universe. In Jung's view, the unconscious is not empty. It is a reservoir of possibility, unnamed memory images waiting to be born. Interstellar space functions in the same way. It does not speak or perform, yet everything new passes through it. Psychologically, we have our own spaces between stars, pauses between thoughts, nights without dreams, life phases that seem stagnant or directionless. Yet it is precisely in these gaps that the psyche quietly reorganizes, emotions settle, and new structures begin to form. Interstellar space is also full of invisible waves, radio waves, gravitational waves, cosmic background radiation. They cross and overlap, carrying information from events long past. Silence does not mean stillness. It means movement that does not need to be heard. In this silence, the universe expresses another form of intelligence, patience. The space between stars does not seek attention. It exists as a supporting field, a condition that allows everything else to happen. As you listen before sleep, allow your mind to drift into that space between breaths, between thoughts, between the day that has passed and the dream that approaches. You do not need to fill this space. No need to understand, remember, or control. Like the universe, your mind is quietly gestating in silence. And like the space between stars, you are safe doing nothing at all. Part 18. Quantum Reality Information and the Poston's Foundation of Existence. After drifting through interstellar space, where silence is not emptiness but gestation, our journey moves even deeper, not outward, but inward, smaller than intuition allows, so small that reality becomes strange. This is the realm of quantum physics information and questions about the deepest foundations of existence. At this microscopic scale, the universe no longer behaves like a smooth, continuous machine. Instead, it appears in jumps, probabilities, overlapping possibilities. Particles are both waves and points. Position remains undefined until observed. Cause does not always precede effect in familiar ways. Reality, at its deepest level, is less certain than we once believed. Many physicists now ask, is matter truly fundamental? Or beneath matter lies something more abstract information? Some theories propose that particles, forces, and fields are manifestations of basic bits of information. Reality is not built from bricks, but from code. The universe is not merely a place, but a vast, silent process of information unfolding. In this view, the vacuum is not empty. It is a restless ground where quantum fields fluctuate endlessly, where particles appear and vanish like breath. Even when nothing exists in the classical sense, activity persists. Emptiness is an illusion of slow perception. Strangely, from these uncertain microscopic laws emerges a macroscopic universe of structure, galaxies, rhythm, and history. From probability arises order, from fluctuation form, from information space-time and meaning. The micro and the macro reflect each other like two sides of the same mirror. Through a Jungian lens, the quantum world resembles the unconscious. The unconscious does not operate linearly. It is timeless, paradoxical, symbolic. One image holds multiple meanings. A dream contains layered realities like quantum superposition. Jung believed beneath personal consciousness lies a collective unconscious where archetypes and shared potential reside. There, nothing is fixed until consciousness touches it. Just as in quantum physics, observation does not merely record reality, it participates in shaping it. When these worlds meet quantum physics and the psyche, a gentle realization arises. Reality is not imposed upon us from outside. It is an ongoing dialogue between potential and manifestation, between what has not yet formed and what is appearing. And human consciousness, fragile as it is, participates in that dialogue. Before sleep, you do not need to understand quantum mechanics. You do not need to grasp information theory. Simply feel this, even as you loosen, as thoughts dissolve and awareness fades. Reality continues to support you through deeper layers of order. At the deepest level of the universe and of the mind, there is no meaningless chaos, only potential resting, waiting to be born again tomorrow or in a very quiet dream. Part 19. Life Beyond. Earth and Strange Possibilities. After drifting quietly through the space between the stars, where what appears empty is, in fact, breathing with waves, magnetic fields, and unfamiliar molecules, we are invited to go deeper still, not deeper in distance, but deeper in essence. Here, familiar forms dissolve, everyday concepts grow faint, and the universe begins to whisper in another language, that of quantum reality and information. At this deepest level, the world no longer operates according to human intuition. Matter is no longer solid. Time no longer flows evenly. Cause does not always precede effect. A particle can exist in multiple states at once. An event becomes real only through interaction. Reality here is uncertain but not chaotic. It is simply more subtle than the senses can grasp. Modern physicists increasingly suspect that matter is not the ultimate foundation of the universe. Instead, information itself may be the most fundamental element. From information arise fields. From fields, particles appear. From particles, space and time weave the large-scale structure of existence. In this view, the universe resembles an encoded symphony, where every note is an arrangement of data vibrating within an invisible ground. Even the vacuum, once thought to be nothing, turns out not to be empty at all. It is an ocean of latent energy, where virtual particles appear and disappear, where quantum fields constantly fluctuate. Absolute silence does not exist. Even without form, potential remains in motion. What is remarkable is this. From that microscopic world of probability and uncertainty emerges a macroscopic universe with structure, galaxies, cycles, and history. From micro-level randomness, macro-level order blossoms. Just as from vague impulses in the mind, thoughts and meaning gradually take shape, the micro and the macro are not opposites, they mirror one another. Here, the thinking of Carl Gustav Jung becomes especially resonant. Jung believed that beneath conscious awareness lies a deeper layer to the unconscious, where time is non-linear, images overlap, and contradictions coexist without needing resolution. The unconscious does not follow an either-or logic, but a both-and logic. This is also the logic of the quantum world. A dream does not need consistency. A symbol can hold multiple meanings at once. An emotion can feel both old and new. In the same way, a quantum particle can be both wave and point. Only when it is observed in physics as well as in psychology does reality temporarily crystallize into a specific form. This brings a gentle feeling before sleep. Reality is not a rigid force pressing down upon you. It is a living flow where potential continues to exist even as you let go. As consciousness dims, as thoughts dissolve, you do not fall into nothingness. You are returning to the ground, where information, energy, and possibility rest together. You do not need to understand quantum physics to be supported by it. You do not need to grasp information to exist in a universe woven from information. Just as you do not need to control sleep in order to sleep. At the deepest level of both the universe and the mind, things already know how to arrange themselves. And in this moment, as you slow down, the world slows with you. Reality no longer asks you to remain alert. It only whispers rest. After touching the deepest layer of matter where reality dissolves into probability, vibration, and information, an unavoidable question gently arises. It is not loud. It does not demand an answer. It simply lingers like a distant echo who is witnessing all of this. Does the universe exist independently of an observer, or at some level is consciousness the way the universe looks back at itself? In quantum physics, one strange truth is already familiar. The behavior of a particle depends on whether it is observed. Before measurement, it is nowhere or everywhere. Only through interaction does reality choose a temporary form. The boundary between subject and object grows thin. The observer does not stand outside the universe, but participates in its unfolding. Seen this way, consciousness is no longer a small accident in a vast, indifferent cosmos. It becomes a subtle point of convergence, where information turns into experience, where energy becomes meaning. Perhaps somewhere along the long arc of evolution, the universe learned to sense itself through beings who dream, question, and gaze at the night sky. Carl Gustav Jung suggested that personal consciousness does not stand alone, but rises from a deeper ocean, the collective unconscious. At that level, images, symbols, and patterns exist prior to language. They belong not to individuals, but to humanity as a whole. Like the deep laws of the universe, they do not need to be named to exist, but they come alive through experience. Seen this way, humans do not face the universe as strangers. We are part of its process of self-recognition. Our reflections, dreams, and quiet moments before sleep are tiny waves within a much larger ocean of awareness. And then another gentle question appears. Is consciousness confined only to biological brains, or is it a property that can arise wherever information becomes complex enough to reflect itself? Might large systems, planets, ecosystems, even the universe itself possess forms of awareness that are slow, dim, yet not empty? These questions do not need answers tonight. Before sleep, they do not require precision. They simply open a sense of connection that you are not a lonely point of awareness in infinite darkness. That you're listening, you're feeling, you're drifting towards sleep are small but real parts of a larger process. When consciousness grows tired, it does not vanish. It dissolves back into the deeper ground like a wave returning to the sea. There, nothing needs to be understood or controlled. There is only the gentle presence of reality continuing to operate, observe, and tell its own story. And in this moment, as you prepare to fall asleep, perhaps the universe is quietly looking through your closing eyes, not to judge, not to demand, only to be with you. Part 20. Letting go into vastness. And then after, traveling together a very long way, across the boundaries of matter, time, space, consciousness, and even what has no name. We return here, not to conclude, not to define, only to pause. The voice now slows a little, softens a little, like setting down something heavy after a long journey, and realizing you do not need to carry it any farther. The universe is still there, vast, silent, in no hurry to explain itself. And you are the same. You do not need to understand everything you have heard. You do not need to remember every concept, image, or question. Some truths are not meant for the waking mind, but for a deeper layer, where feeling is enough. Carl Gustav Jung once suggested that humanity's greatest anxiety does not come from the unknown itself, but from resisting the unknown. When we demand clarity answers control, we tighten ourselves. When we allow open spaces to exist, the mind begins to exhale. If looked at gently, the unknown is no longer frightening. It resembles a half-open door in warm darkness, not threatening, not calling, simply inviting not for you to step through now, but to know that the space beyond is wide enough that you do not need to strain. The universe does not require you to understand it in order to belong to it, just as sleep does not ask you to do it right. You sleep when you stop trying to sleep. You rest when you stop forcing rest. At the deepest level, letting go is not giving up. Letting go is trusting. Trusting that some systems work better without interference. Trusting that the body knows how to sleep, the mind knows how to settle, and reality knows how to support you even when you cannot name it. Right now, you may notice your breath. No need to change it. Just notice. Air moving in, air moving out, like a distant tide, like an ancient rhythm of the universe, of which you are a very small but very real part. There are no more questions that need answering tonight. No mysteries that must be solved before sleep. The unknown can remain where it is safe, waiting for another time. For now, you are allowed to rest. If anything from this journey remains, let it be only a vague feeling, a little lighter in the chest, a little wider in the mind, a quiet peace without a name. That is enough. And when sleep arrives, it does not come as an achievement. It comes as a return to gentle darkness, a return to vastness that demands nothing, a return to yourself in a state where you do not need to be anyone at all. You do not need to listen any further now. No need to follow anything else. Let the story fade like stars dimming before dawn, not because morning has come, but because the night is deep enough. Wishing you a peaceful sleep. Sleep lightly. Sleep deeply. Sleep within the calm vastness of the universe.